Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome. Nice to see everybody here. Thank you for joining in today. We're on day 3 of summertime rain, which is unusual because we pretty much get drought every summer. And this year we appear to be having a very a cooler than normal summer, and I'm okay with that. Honestly, after the last few summers of extremely hot weather, I'm okay with something a little bit more neutral. And we always do need the rain. We didn't get a lot of snow this winter, not that we ever do here in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver, but for other areas of the province, we really need to be stepping up our water. So the rain is a good thing. So let me know what it's like wherever you are. It is a long weekend for us here in BC. I don't know about, I don't think there's maybe some holidays in the US. I'm not really sure. But for us here in BC, it is BC Day. So we have a long weekend with the holiday Monday. So looking forward to that. Not that it really makes much difference in my life, but working from home. But it's always nice to have a day off, isn't it? And a holiday. So yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. So here are our topics for this morning that we're going to chat about. And yeah, I've got some interesting stuff to cover off today. So let's go ahead and dive in. Where are we at now? Here we go. Okay. So Virgin Cruises, who are an adult-only cruise line, they have announced a promotion saying kids can sail for free. Horror of horrors, you say. Does this mean that they are now going to allow kids on some cruises? Well, the reality is, yes, they are. However, their definition of a child is between 18 and 23 years old. I believe that's, 18 and 26 years old. So kids, I don't know, that's a bit bold, probably somewhat offensive to somebody as a young adult. But but free is probably enough to offset any annoyance with being able to sail for free. So basically, there are certain criteria. You need to be booked into a Central Sea Terrace category cabin or lower. So if you're in a suite or a fancy cabin, this isn't going to apply. You do need to book this by April 23rd of this year for sailings completed before December 15th of this year of 2024 as well. So interesting concept. So this is based on, I believe, having at least one adult in the room. And yeah. Hello, Angelo. How are you? 26 years old. Don't look a day over it as well. So let me know what your secret is, obviously. So yeah, kind of cool. Free cruising coming. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Like, free travel is a good thing, right? Yeah. Good to see you're feeling sparky today, having a little fun. So yeah, that's kind of a cool thing. Virgin does tend to be a little bit more on the expensive side. So to be able to stay in a cabin at zero cost. Now, you're still going to have to pay the taxes, okay, and gratuities. And we're going to talk about gratuities coming up. Interesting stuff stuff I didn't know about cruising and the gratuities or the crew appreciation tips. You know, a lot of different words for it. It's funny how some things have different they call them different things to make them a little bit, well, it's just marketing, isn't it? You know, it's just like people eat muffins because they think they're healthy. Well, really, a muffin is just is just cake with good marketing, right? I mean, it's full of sugar. So yeah, same thing with, crew appreciation tips, gratuities, call it what you'd like. Same thing with vacation clubs and timeshares, they're all the same thing, right? So yeah, but yeah, I guess it helps soften the blow a little bit, doesn't it? Okay, moving on. So let's talk a little bit for a second about this Cancun shooting. If you haven't, you probably have heard about it. If you haven't, basically it took place just on the beach by the Rio Palace Las Americas resort right in Cancun. So that's at the top of the seven, at the very top, near where Hyatt Ziva Cancun is. The Rio, no, not Rio Cancun. And so basically, oh, interesting that you didn't hear about it. Okay, so this is a gist of what happened. Third-party information. Okay, so take it all with a grain of salt. But the gist of it is there was a drug dealer who I believe was either on the beach or came onto the beach, and it was a targeted shooting. During the whole thing, unfortunately, a young child was hit and sadly killed through the shooting. So the reason I bring this up, and everybody in the travel industry is always like, don't talk about this stuff, because Cancun gets enough bad press already. I couldn't count on all my fingers and all my toes the number of times that I've been to Cancun. Probably half of those I've been on my own, and I've never felt unsafe. I've never been threatened. I've never never had anything bad happen to me. So I feel very comfortable down there. And when people say they're afraid to go to Mexico, I'd say, well, Angela's from Greater Chicago area. How many mass shootings have they had there so far this year? I haven't even tallied it up. But any major city you go to, there is danger inherent. The thing that, quite frankly, the thing that pisses me off the most is when it comes to these shootings and stuff like that. I guess here's the question. And if you're watching this later, please still go ahead and answer. And I guess the question is, have you ever been on the beach, in town, at the shops? Have you ever seen somebody or heard somebody get asked for if they want drugs, and then have that turn into a side conversation? Because yes, clearly the answer is yes, they do. Where I'm going with this is, if there's no market for these things, then if nobody's going to buy the drugs, they won't be able to sell the drugs. So they'll go find somewhere else to sell the drugs. Angela, whoa. Yeah, I mean, and you look at the overall population per capita, that's maybe not too bad, but I mean, that's a lot. And certainly there will be unreported homicides in Chicago. There will be unreported homicides in Cancun, in Mexico. But these are pretty big numbers. And I guess where I'm going with this is, as tragic as this whole recent shooting was, and the poor child, and of course, thoughts go out to the family of the child, and condolences. But yeah, drugs follow where the people and the money goes. It's no different than that shooting at the Hyatt Ziva, Hyatt Ziva Riviera Cancun years ago. I mean, the whole thing was drug related. It was people looking for drugs. Dealers came to them. Wrong dealers, unfortunately, because they were in the wrong territory. Yeah, exactly. So I guess I'm just saying, if we could all maybe stop with the whole doing drugs in foreign countries, maybe that would resolve some of this. I don't think it's ever going to completely stop it, but I don't know. Am I on another rant? I don't know. It just seems like these kind of things, like I say, if we decrease the demand, keep the demand up for travel, but decrease the demand for drug-related travel. I mean, just because you're on vacation doesn't mean you have a free ride. Doesn't mean you get a get out of jail free card. You get caught with this stuff, you are going to jail, like hands down. So, like I said, I just wonder about this. And if you have a friend who is like their modus operandi is, I am going to kick my feet up when I go on vacation and I'm going to smoke some whatever or do a harder drug, maybe that's a real conversation to have with them. Like, you know what? Like, you're actually endangering other people by bringing that element. I mean, they always say, if you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. Well, now we're not only looking for trouble, but it feels like, hey, we're Ubering it to us, like quite literally. Let me know what you think about it. And is this something that people should be more vocal about? I know I haven't been to a hotel, a resort since COVID, where I haven't had to sign a waiver. Like you actually sign a contract to say that you will not bring drugs onto the property or enact or engage in any nefarious activities. And if you do, if you're caught, you're booted. You're booted and you're not getting a refund. You're not getting compensation. You are out because you broke the contract, and they're fully within their legal rights to do that. Yeah, just, oh, wow. Angela's saying, happens in, yeah, getting approached to see if I wanted to buy drugs. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like we've never gone to Mexico where it's been more than, 5 or 10 minutes and you walk down the streets and somebody's like, weed blow, weed blow, weed blow. And neither of us are into that. So, I mean, I'm happy with a glass of wine. That's my drug of choice. But, yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, hello, Christine. Oh, and I have a special little, where's my thing here? Oh, up here. Happy birthday, Christine. I did see that on Facebook. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in today. Would never walk in Cleveland or Detroit at night. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Vancouver, I do, in some areas. But there are other areas where I wouldn't go during the day. So yeah, you do have to kind of know where you are and what you're doing and be aware. It's just about being a smart tourist, right? But I don't know. I mean, if like I said, the hotels, I think the resorts are creating the awareness by actually putting that on a contract and making people sign it. That said, most people don't read contracts. So I think it's almost like a conversation that they need to have with people, but then some people will probably be offended. I mean, it's sort of a no-win situation, but offending people is probably better than having the potential for a shooting. But I don't know. These are just my thoughts. But we're going to move on from that because it's kind of a negative topic. Oh, okay. Sorry. But before we move on. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, walking around Chicago, you got to know which areas are okay to be in. Yeah, 100%. And that, again, that's no different if you're in Vancouver, Toronto, Seattle, LA, Dallas, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, again, some dodgy areas, but no more so than any other major city. So you just, oh, that's nice. Sharing the birthday wishes all around. So yeah, I mean, it's just something you've got to be aware of. But anyways, we're going to move on from that. Venice says no to groups. So this is larger groups. So effective tomorrow, effective August 1st, no large groups. They must be smaller than 25 people. And the tour guides, tour operators are not allowed to use loudspeakers. So basically they can't do anything to disrupt other people or to create noisy situations. Venice is really cracking down on the tourists and how much it's impacting the ports and stuff like that, and the regular residents, or residents at least of that country. And I kind of get it. I mean, we don't see too much of an impact here in Vancouver, but we're not a port stop city. We are a port start and end city. I would be curious for the people who live in Victoria, where that is a port of call. I'd be curious to find out what they feel of the impact of cruisers and stuff like that, and also just tourism. Because I mean, if you're going to cruise out of Vancouver, you really do want to give it a couple of nights, as well as head over to Vancouver Island and see Victoria. It's beautiful. Actually, lots of history, probably more so than in Vancouver. But it's eclectic and it's fun. Some haunted bars, believe that or don't believe it. Kind of weird that the power went out, but some of the lights stayed on. The whole block of power was out, but some of the lights stayed on. And this is the kind of weird stuff I mean. But yeah, it's some interesting stuff to see. And actually, I'm regretting. Just last night, I was watching a couple of videos of some of my favorite YouTubers. One of them is the Adventures of a Traveling Dawn. If you haven't watched any of his videos, really interesting and informative as far as showing you different destinations. And he's just done this epic trip. I think he started off in Greece, was in Bulgaria at one point, Montenegro. Oh man, he went to so many countries, and then now he is back in the USA. I believe he resides in Texas, and so he's done some tours of the Alamo and stuff like that. It's really interesting. Anyways, he had done a trip here to Seattle a few years back, and he was sort of showing some different places to go and see. And I was thinking and one of my ideas for a video, so many ideas, so few completed. But one of the ideas was to do sort of show you the routing, to start off in Seattle, do some sightseeing there, Pike Market, Beecher's Cheese, the original Starbucks, that kind of thing, as well as the pier. And then there's a ferry that goes from Seattle to Victoria, and then tour around there, show you some really cool pubs and some different sites and stuff like that. And then take the ferry over to Vancouver and show you some interesting stuff there, or maybe even take a float plane, which is kind of cool. But ideas in the works. Let me know if you would be interested in something like that, and we can put it together. Okay, moving on. So desert sand equals hurricane lull. You'll recall at the beginning of the year, they were predicting, how many was it? I have this somewhere. I'm not finding it, am I? Yeah, okay, here we go. So they were originally predicting for 2024, 20 to 25 named storms, 8 to 12 hurricanes, and 4 to 7 major hurricanes. That was the prediction. You guys already know that what I've stated based on past historical forecasts versus realities. As you know, I mean, we've had 3 named storms so far this year. There's been the 2 storms, as well as the one Cat 5 hurricane, which was pretty devastating, and which was actually the earliest Cat 5 hurricane that we've seen on record. So, and I like to say that because, when everybody talks about, peak temperatures and cold temperatures and stuff like that, you have to remember that we've only really, especially in North America, been keeping weather records since about the 1940s. So, put it in context, it was just the first ever Cat 5 hurricane. Well, for as long as we've been keeping track, it is, but may not have necessarily been the first ever. But nonetheless, what they're saying is that because there have been less storms than expected, it's because of the Sahara Desert sand, which blows from the Sahara Desert, oddly enough, across the ocean. The winds carry it across the ocean, and the more it carries, the actually better it does at dampening any storms, because it causes the air to be dry and heavy, and it basically means that the hurricanes can't form. It also does this weird, like there's a temperature inversion, so you have the cold air over warm air, and so where that warm air would normally and my I guess social studies teacher would be pleased to know that I recognize that it's the cumulonimbus clouds, bing, star points for me, that rise up, and those are the storm clouds. And therein my knowledge of clouds ends. So if you know more than that, please feel free to contribute. But basically what they're saying is with the desert, which every time this time of year always is a factor where it's coming from Africa and blowing across, going with the waves, the winds, and it usually has an impact on the storms, sometimes more, sometimes less. I was curious, with us switching from El Nino to La Nina, where the wind currents change, if that would have impacted that desert storm. That was a bad choice of words. The Sahara desert winds. Yeah, pretty wild. And who would have known that the Sahara desert, that sand from the desert, could make it all the way in the air to as far as the Caribbean? I mean, that kind of blew my mind when I found that out a few years back. But nonetheless, they are saying, unfortunately, those winds that carry the sand across predominantly do happen in July, which is why you tend to see, and also because of the temperature changes, you do tend to see more, the peak of hurricane season being August and September of each year. And they are thinking that the remnants of this will go a little bit into August, and what they are forecasting is that September should have us see some bigger storm activity. So take that with a grain of sand, if you will. Oh, corny. But it's a forecast. So again, it's supposed to be 27 today. Don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. But it's not. It's like 18. Oh, what's my phone say? 19. And it is supposed to get warmer, but I mean, suffice it that the forecast is not in the same realm as accurate. So, like I said, I mean, it could mean that we have a larger impact of storms in September, and they do say, to be conscious of that. If you've got a cruise planned, if you're going to get a trip to Mexico planned, and I know some of you do, that's just something you need to be prepared for. So mentally prepared, physically prepared, and just know that that could have an impact to your travel plans, or it could be totally fine. That's the beauty of travel. You just don't know. Okay, moving on to our last topic of the day, unless anybody has any random stuff, because we like tangents here. Talking about cruise tips. Okay, so this was, again, something that I just learned recently. Okay, so first of all, we talked about tipping on cruises a few weeks ago. And yeah, 100%, always a gamble, for sure. And you know what? If I could get like a really wicked rate aside from the fact that I'm already booked to go to Aruba in September, but if I wasn't and I could get a really good rate for the Hyatt Vivid, I would be back there in a heartbeat. And again, thank you to Roxanne. If you haven't already tuned in, Roxanne I was grateful that she took some time out of her busy and relaxing vacation last week to do an interview with me. And so we got to find out the scoop on a few of the things that have been updated at the hotel, at the resort, since since I was there and Angela was there actually at the same time. So it was good to get a little update on that. So when we talked about cruising, one of the things that we talked about was that some people tip. So, okay, stepping back. When you book a cruise, sometimes like Norwegian perpetually has this free at sea offer. And so basically with that, yeah, definitely, thank you. With the free at sea promo, what they have done is they included a bunch of different things, but one of the things that they include was the cruise tips or the crew appreciation, call it what you like. And they with other cruise lines, like some of the posh cruise lines, they just include it. They don't mess around. They don't ask for separate tips. And the tips do vary depending on what type of cabin you're in. So if you're in an inside cabin, your projected or your automatic tips that are added to your statement are less than if you were in a suite on a regular cruise line. And so, like I said, with Norwegian, they've got this promotion on where it's perpetually included. Princess, for example, has their Princess Plus, where if you get that, then it includes the drink package as well as some dining options, as well as the crew appreciation tips. And the other cruise lines do as well. And sometimes these are optional, and sometimes it's just something that's a promotion that everybody gets. Alternatively, if you don't go for those promotions, like for example, if you don't drink, then there's really no point in having not only the alcohol package added on, but also the gratuities accordingly for the alcohol package. But either way, if you order, either way, you're going to see, and when you look at your daily cruise statement, you are going to see that there are tips added or a gratuity added each day. And so that can add up. What I was surprised to hear is that some people tip over and above. So they have the crew appreciation, which is actually spread to all of the crew on the ship. So it's not just front facing, like your cabin steward, customer service, servers, bartenders, that kind of thing. It's also for the people in the kitchen, the people who are working in other positions, which again are still sort of like entry-level positions. Like the captain, he's making good money, or she is making good money. I think Royal Caribbean was one of the first ones to have a female captain. So well done you for that. But for the sort of more lead-in staff levels, that's actually how they get paid, which kind of blows your mind, right? So here's the thing. So all of the passengers on the ship, they're going to ideally pay their gratuities. And then what the cruise line does is they take that and they redistribute it to the crew. For most, I think most of the cruise lines, it is distributed a lot based on their ratings. So if you do your survey after the cruise is finished and you say, well, okay, housekeeping or your cabin steward, they didn't come every day. They didn't do a great job of cleaning. They didn't replenish certain things like soap or shampoo. Maybe you give them a low rating. Well, if they're that job overall, that department gets a low rating, then that might mean that their tips or the extra money that they get is a little bit lower. Whereas other departments, if the servers at the bars and the bartenders are doing an amazing job of keeping everybody happy, they know your drink, they recognize your name or they know your name. Kind of easy when you've got the princess medallion where your name pops up at the bar. But either way, if they get really good ratings, then they will often get extra portion or a higher portion of the overall tips. The cruise line pays them a lower wage and rely relies on these gratuities to sort of make the difference, and the employees rely on those tips to make the difference. Kind of no different than in restaurants, where a lot of times people who work in hospitality have a lower starting wage compared to any other job. And the expectation is that the tips will kind of make up the difference, so that, eventually you are still making the same as an entry-level position in, let's say, an office. Okay, so backtracking again. Some people say that they tip extra. There was actually quite a few discussions in the last few weeks in some of the cruise forums on Facebook, the cruise groups, about people not paying gratuities, and that people say they don't ever pay gratuities. And of course, the impact of that is that people then, the employees then, are getting paid less. So obviously that is going to have an impact. Oh, okay, yeah, good point. Definitely, this is something that some people do. So they go to guest services at the start of the cruise, have them take the automatic gratuities off of their account, and then they just give the money to the people that they feel are going over and above. A hack to saving money. Well, okay. But in the end, yeah, you're saving money, but you're kind of, like, I would hope that somebody who does that wouldn't expect to have great service, because they kind of go hand in hand. And if you're okay with not having great service, then, I guess. It's just, and you might be from, I know there's quite a few people who follow on the channel that are from the UK, where it's becoming more common to tip. But until, well, yeah, it's interesting, and I didn't know this. I didn't realize that this would directly impact their pay. And it's the way it's structured. So look, everybody either pays more upfront for the cruise, right? So cruise prices go up because people are doing this, or everybody just pays the gratuities, which realistically, if it's $15 a day on a 7-day cruise and there's 2 of you in the cabin, that's what, $210. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, $30 a day times 7, 30 times 7, yeah. So I might know about the cumulonimbus clouds, but math has never been my strong point. Whatever. This is why we have phones. This is why we have smartwatches. We can do the math. I just was really surprised, and I wonder if the people who have done this in the past were aware of the ramifications. And like I said, in the UK, tipping has not historically been very prevalent. Although if you go to the tourist areas, London, Southampton, if you're going into some of the more popular cities, then I think you will find that if you go to the bar, a tip is expected. Some of them even have QR codes where you can just tap to give a quid, a pound tip. So it's interesting how they've done that. So it's becoming more prevalent there. But Australia is another one. Like, being Canadian, when we went to Rarotonga, which is nothing to do with Australia other than it's really close to Australia and New Zealand, that it was not expected to tip. And it was very refreshing, I can assure you. But we also all 8 of us commented the fact that we felt that there were times when tipping might have been a bit of a better idea, because then people would have been working a little bit harder. Now, this wasn't across the board in all of our experiences, and I would hands down recommend going to Rarotonga. It was absolutely an amazing experience. But I love this. Complains with this service sucks. Yeah. I learned that. It was actually funny. Years and years ago, when I was on, well, actually, so if you don't know, I was a destination wedding bride. So we got married in Cuba, being Canadian. We were allowed to go there and had a beautiful wedding. I had friends and family there with us. And we noticed very quickly that my sister is a pretty big tipper. And so she dropped a fair amount of coin. And of course, when we were there one day and it started raining by the pool, and we went to the bar that was our sort of go-to during the day, and they recognized our group, and like it was like zoom, like the rain is coming down and the bar is full because it was the only place to stay moderately dry. And the bartender looks around, he sees my sister and the rest of us, and he's like, straight to us. And it was kind of funny. So you know what? Yeah, like you do get better service if you are when you're tipping. You don't have to be excessive. It's just doing the right. Well, in my opinion, it's doing the right thing, and it's showing appreciation. Yeah, but you know what? It's also, I mean, Angelo, I have seen you interact with the staff. You're always very respectful. I've mentioned this before. He knew everybody's name, everybody who's working at the resort. So he was respecting them, therefore he was getting respect back. And it's being polite. It's not saying, yeah, give me a beer. Please, may I have a beer? Or at least saying please and thank you. It's unfortunate that that's become such those words have become a deficit words in our vocabulary. But it never hurts. Never hurts. Just, and especially if you can say it in their language. Again, even yeah. And if you guys were watching when I was at the Hyatt Vivid and I went live the second day that I was there, you notice how shy Angelo was when I sort of stopped when I was at the breakfast buffet, when I spotted him and was like off camera. I was like, "You want to be on here? I'm live." And he was like, "Yeah." So yeah, definitely a shy little guy. Not. So yeah, again, these are all, kind of interesting talking points, your next barbecue or party, whatever. Summer is always great for social. Oh, hello, look who's here. Hello, Cruise Nuts. How are you? Cruise Nuts, they do a lot of unbelievable drone photography. If you are interested in taking a cruise, one of the videos that I just saw, I think it was from a couple of days ago, was I think it was the Icon of the Seas, and they did a drone shot of the ship. If this is a big ship, big ship, and I have previously not had any desire to go on anything that big before until I saw their video. They're short and sweet, so it's not gonna take half an hour out of your day. Most of them are under 3 minutes. And yeah, definitely check out their channel. Very cool videos. Oh yeah, yeah, whatever. Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, so it was interesting to find that out, and like I said, I just assumed it was like an all-inclusive resort where it's kind of over and above. That said, I've harped on about the fact that at the resorts, they don't pay the staff a lot. $10 a day is kind of, and I mean, economies of scale, yes, a lot of things are a lot cheaper in Mexico. They're not that cheap. So they definitely do rely on on the tips to help, to make a living, to raise their kids and buy a house, all that good stuff. So yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, ask your friends if they, especially, if I guess the last two talking about the Sahara Desert and the fact that the sand from the Sahara Desert is what often keeps the hurricanes at bay. Ask if your friends knew that, and also ask about the cruising and if they are. I wouldn't ask if they tip, because then you're just you're potentially asking for a fight, or maybe you find somebody who thinks the same way you do, or maybe you feel this way or felt this way until you knew this. But it would be interesting to ask your friends if they were aware of this. I would bet money that most of them don't. Between those two things, between the Sahara Desert and the fact that if you don't tip, it actually lowers their pay. I mean, I'm speechless. What else could be said, right? That's so true. So true. And same with the cruise. If you can afford to go on the cruise, for goodness sakes, you can afford to tip. And yeah, and to Angela's point, he said, his friends have said, well, they say that the tips are included. And I really, really think that the resorts ought to stop saying that, because truly, it's not true. Yeah, I think we all agree on that. Well, look, if you disagreed with most of what I'm saying, you probably still wouldn't be watching. But yeah. So, some interesting topics today. I'm going to try find some more for next week. Busy month of August coming up. And, oh, look who's here. 𝖫𝖨𝖲𝖓. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I was so happy to see that the other day. I was like, it took forever to get to 5,000. Actually, it took forever to get to 4,900. And then once I hit 4,900, I was like, yeah, come on. I'll tell you what, July, watching the numbers slowly dwindle in is like waiting for soup to boil, waiting for your paint to dry. It just seemed to take forever. So thank you, Bojangles, for being one of the first people to congratulate me on that. I'm just glad. I appreciate all of you for your support and for following, and for participating. It's I love talking about travel, and it's fun to share it with you and also find out what your thoughts are on things. So yeah. It's been a busy week. But yeah, August, we've got a bunch of stuff coming up. Later in the month, I am going to be going on a Viking Ocean cruise ship. These are much, much smaller than your typical cruise ship. That said, more so smaller in terms of the amount of passengers that they take. So stay tuned for a video about that. And then, of course, I've got the trip to Aruba coming up, to the Rio Palace Antilles, which is maybe not quite yet, but it is going to be elite club. And I mean, I'm trying to help you understand these Rio resorts as much as I can, but I don't even think they have figured it out, because I did that video about comparing elite club versus just regular rooms, and also comparing the classic Rius, so any of the Rius that don't say palace in the name, versus the Rio Palace properties. And it seems like each resort, there's the corporate vision of what these should be, and then there's the resort's idea of what it should be. And case in point, the Rio Palace Antilles in Aruba is the place where they have the parties, but it's only once a week. And it's also elite club, which in Cabo means people who aren't staying in an elite club resort can't go there. Whereas in Aruba, it seems like you will still have exchange privileges. Both of them are adults only. Are they? No. The Rio Palace Aruba is family friendly. So the adults can go to either side. But I mean, we'll see. I'll try to further unveil the mystery behind, what it's going to look like and what this might look like for other future resorts as they switch to Elite Plus. We shall see. Anyways, lots of fun stuff coming up. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and give that a big thumbs up. Just shows that you're enjoying the content. Thanks for all the comments. That really helps. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. But most importantly, hit the bell so that you get notified if I go live, when I go live, and also when there's new videos coming out. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to wrap it up for here. But thanks for tuning in this week. And we will be back next Wednesday. Same time, same place. And we'll be covering off more fun travel topics. So thanks for tuning in today. And see you on the next one. Bye for now. Waving at the camera. No, things always stay the same.